The various considerations or reasons or ways of viewing others that would enable one to put up with vile and cruel treatment at the hands of others are amply set out in the Bhikshu Gita. Some of this reasoning or feeling may be quoted here, just as examples of the high level of thinking and acting that goes to make up perfect love or Atma Nishta. The cruelly treated monk feels that the cruel tormentors and he are really one and the same, or that they are parts of one universal system along with him. The teeth and tongue are parts of the same body. Sometimes it chances that the teeth bite the tongue. Then whom is a man to blame and quarrel with? He must quietly endure it with all placidity. Sometimes one limb hits against another. Who is to blame then? None. So the monk feels that the mind must be completely controlled and freed from all traces of hatred and blaming and other tendencies, and thereby eradicating the old and popular ways of reacting. Love is the best trainer and helper in mind conquest. By such conquest, it is easier for a person to raise himself from identification of himself with a narrow self, with its needs and faculties confined to a particular body, to identification with the universal self, Param Atman, divinity. By loving the Guru intensely, one achieves this result without going through all the arguments in favor of self-expansion or identification with the Supreme that are set out in this Bhikshu Gita, which Baba declared to be his teaching. Well, are there stages in this expansion? Is there development from one level to higher levels? Probably there are. Acts first prompted by reason become habits and natural. The soul gets more and more mature, just as a small mango fruit emerging from the mango flower grows bigger and develops its parts, stores up acid and starch, and turns them all into sugar with an attractive covering or skin enclosing a hard seed. But it is not practical or necessary or possible to dissect Baba's ego self, to see when he had the tiny size, the acid and the attractive skin, and when the starch was stored and turned into sugar. Love generally beams out in action, and very often the extent and nature of the love within is indicated by the extent and nature of the acts. This is a general rule, but in the cases of many, and especially in the case of Baba, there are rules of conduct, principles and practice of secrecy, self-suppression, and concealment which prevent the beholder from guessing the existence or the extent of the internal love. The popular maxim of Kabir that states, "He who has got something, whether it be wealth, power, or ability, conceals it and may be taken away with," which means that a spiritual aspirant, a sadhaka, or a saint should not betray his fullest development, but through wise should sport like a child or boy, though clever should behave like a dunce, though learned should talk like a crazy or insane person, and though versed in the scripture should act like brutes, for thus his concentration within himself will remain undisturbed by others. It is thus that the Avutayani behaved, like a dullard, idiot, or an obsessed man. In Tiruvannamalai, Seshadri Swami feigned madness and advised a spiritual aspirant to feign madness. A too open-hearted man, one who reveals all the workings of his mind, is at the mercy of his surroundings, and his soul development will be hindered. For instance, the revelation of a little advance in virtue might evoke praise, which in turn may raise up self-conceit and vanity, and hinder further spiritual advance. Some error, some false step when confessed to outsiders might evoke severe censor, contempt, or even hatred, and these may depress a man and even produce an inferiority complex. Just as solitude is helpful for spiritual practice, a screen of silence, a willful octopus-like spread of blinding blackness, preventing the idly curious from knowing one's inner working, is useful or even necessary for one's proper attention to oneself. These are to be kept secret, and mantram includes spiritual sadhana. Baba was throughout following the rule of secrecy for himself, and except under strict necessity did not reveal his spiritual courses. For that matter, he never communicated his name, his antecedents, and only late in life, shortly before he passed away, he revealed his Brahmin parentage as Patri, and his breeding by the Fakur, and even his guru's name was rarely mentioned, though the rule is to publicize the guru but conceal his teaching is the wise man's rule. The course of instruction he obtained from his present guru was revealed to Radhabai Deshmukhan first, and next to Anna Sahib Dabokar, or Himadpant, the author of this book. He revealed his dealings with his guru and at other times, and several of those revelations are set out in the Gospel of Baba, but they seem mostly to refer to former births of Baba. Of these former births, he mentioned a good number without giving dates and places. So we are left in doubt often whether any teaching or other benefit Baba derived, as mentioned by him, was in the last or previous births. Some of these trainings are remarkable, and the experiences mentioned by Baba are always valuable, whatever birth they may refer to. He refers to his making inquiries about realization along with 3 other sadhaks, and his determination not to rely upon bookish knowledge to reach the highest goal, but to rely completely upon surrender to the Parama Guru. As the matter is subtle, there is no other way for realization except another guru's teaching. His 3 friends and fellow spiritual aspirants did not believe that a guru was necessary, and trusted to their book learning to achieve spiritual progress, or finally come to Atma Jnana or Brahma Nishta. They came across the guru who offered to help them. The 3 companions disdained the help and went away. Baba alone went to the guru and accepted help and nourishment from him, and placed himself completely at his mercy. That guru tested the extent of his trust and confidence by tying up his legs with a rope and making him hang down from a tree at the brink of a well just above the water. Baba stood the test. 4 or 5 hours after the test was started, the guru who had gone away came back and asked him how he fared. Baba, instead of fidgeting and fretting, fuming and cursing, as some others might have done, was calm and cool and happy because of his complete faith that the guru would not do anything except what was the best for him. The guru, having thus sufficiently tested his faith, admitted him into his school of love and confidence, and enabled him by many years' probation to reach perfection. This was without any reference to dates, but taking into consideration his probation under the Fakur and the Zamindar, Venkatesa. This training was probably by a guru of a former life. Anyhow, the teaching is very useful for sadhaks, for governing their own self, though it may not be easy to fix up this training in the present history of Baba. Even if it was in a previous birth, that Purva Abhyasa was deeply ingrained in Baba and served as a basis even for the latest life. Some listeners might, however, desire that the development of Baba in this last birth that we are now mainly concerned with should be dealt with as our main interest. Hence, we shall proceed to consider that alone in what follows. The proper way of dealing with such a difficult subject as personality appears to be, after all, the common sense way of treating personality as viewed by the world. In the case of Sai Baba, we have his earliest period with his original parents, who very quickly deserted him or gave him away, and with whom therefore his stay was far too short for any noticeable development or change of personality. The next stage of life reached by Baba was the stage when he stayed with the fakur to whom he had been handed over. This appears to have continued for at least 4 or 5 years, almost from the 1st to the 6th year, the most impressionable period of the whole life. This fakur appears to have been a very advanced Sufi, and he and his wife appear to have loved Sai Baba tenderly and brought him up with all attention and care. The events, if any, of that period are not known, but might be inferred from the fact that in later life, when Baba referred to his guru or God, he used the term fakur to denote God or guru or guide, and hence taking it that the term fakur referred to this fakur to whom he was handed over. It is clear that he regarded him as his all in all, as God and as guru, and therefore the relations must have been of the most perfect sort, implicit in thorough faith and confidence on the one hand, and complete support on the other. That is the ideal relation between God and his devotee. The life of Sai Baba was to be a life of perfection, which after Mahasamadhi should be fully recognized as the divine operating without limitations of time or place, and for the benefit not of one individual or of one country, but for all. Therefore, the grounding for that must be in the earliest perfection of love towards God or towards anything regarded as God. The fakur, having been regarded as God, and as everything to Baba, was loved with perfect faith and bliss. Baba had therefore, we may presume, a thorough grounding in love, which is the positive side. The negative side that goes with it, rather the obverse of it, is freedom from attachment to the world. Ordinarily, love of parents and sisters and brothers and friends and wealth and possessions crowd into one's soul and crowd out the idea of God, or leave it as a faint outline, just impinging upon the other items occupying the soul. In the case of Sai Baba, father and mother are the earliest gods. So the fakur and his wife must have given him the God idea and must have responded to his love and his need of protection. And thus the positive and the negative go together in this early period, namely thorough detachment from the world and thorough attachment to God or Guru representation. This epoch continued only for a short period of 5 or 6 years, though it might be of great importance in making up Baba's life. On the death of the fakur, Baba was taken to the Zamindar Gopal Rao Desmukh, who was a perfect lover of God under the name of Venkatesa. So the next period of stay of 10 or 12 years with that master or guru to whom the fakur's widow handed him over were the most important in Baba's life. As part of Baba's destiny, the fakur's widow died soon after leaving him under the care of his master, who became all in all to him. Here again, Baba's destiny was that his previous line of thinking and feeling and being should be continued and not disturbed. The love which began under the fakur became still more powerful, and we may presume under the care of Desmukh or Venkatesa, Gopal Rao treated him as the reincarnation of Kabir, himself having been Ramananda of Kasi, or Kabir's guru, in a former birth of his. The love, therefore, of Ramananda to Kabir, perfect and unalloyed with any worldly taint, must have therefore prevailed between Venkatesa and Baba. Baba had no care for anything and was not distracted by any education or what is usually called education, that is, learning. He was perpetually attending upon Venkatesa, that is, Desmukh, in a way in which the Guru Gita aptly describes as the proper attitude. That is, Baba was like a peon, ever ready at hand to carry out the chieftain's orders. There was no distraction of games or playmates, or rivalry, or any examination to trouble him. His whole heart ran on to the Master. Baba himself gives the following description, which applies here. I loved to gaze at him all the while, and even for a few seconds if he were not there to see. I would not like to have eyes at all. I did not wish to go back. I forgot all things but the Guru. My life was concentrated in my sight, and my sight in him. That was the object of my meditation. In silence I bowed. These words referred to the Guru of a former life, probably. But the description of contact with the latest Guru, as given below, is on the same lines. And it is stated as follows. Baba said, For 12 years I waited on my Guru, who is peerless and loving. How can I describe his love to me? When he was in love trance, I sat and gazed at him. We were both filled with bliss. I cared not to turn my eye upon anything else. Night and day I poured upon his face with an ardor of love that banished hunger and thirst. The Guru's absence for a second made me restless. I meditated on nothing but the Guru, and had no goal or object other than the Guru. Unceasingly fixed upon him was my mind. Wonderful indeed the art of my Guru. I wanted nothing but the Guru, and he wanted nothing but this intense love from me. Apparently inactive, he never neglected me, but always protected me by his glance. That Guru never blew any mantra into my ear. By his grace, I attained to my present state. Making the Guru the sole object of one's thoughts and aims, one attains the supreme goal. This is the only truth the Guru taught me. The 4 sadhanas and 6 shastras are not necessary. Trusting in the Guru fully is enough. The above is a true narration of the actual facts by Baba, the soul of truth. It is by learning the facts that one can understand and appreciate the text, like the Bhakti Sutras. Having which, bhakti or love, one relinquishes all desire, grief, hostility, indulgence in worldly pleasures, and all efforts at selfish advancement. Knowing which one becomes ecstatic, quiet, and happy in oneself, and one renounces all worldly concerns and even Vedic rites. Concentration on love, apathy towards everything against it. Giving up all other supports than love, and having no other sadhana. The Bhakti Sutras continue that love surrenders all actions to God and feels extreme restlessness in being without him. God and his devotee are the same. This is the highly romantic love which even between sexes and at very early ages is so hard to find. But in Baba's life, without any intrusion of any sex and without any incorporation of mere romantic stories, Baba had this love at his height. Baba felt that the object of his love was flowing to him. It is under such circumstances that samadhi and meditation naturally flow in one's soul, and end in perfect samadhi, or the stateless state. The lover gets absorbed in the object of love, and nature works in unity between the two, the lover and the loved. The disciple turns without any difficulty and without requiring any period of time into his absolute likeness of the Guru. This process of love, which Baba describes as subsisting between himself and Venkatesa, was the one course calculated to carry out the turning or transformation of the pupil into the perfect likeness of the Master. It is not as though it were the result of willing on the part of the Master, though that also may have been the case. It is purely a natural process, the mutual attraction of soul to soul, and the passing on of the nature of one to the other was the same as in the case of a huge magnetic dynamo and a piece of iron brought into contact with it. Therefore, this long period of 10 or 12 years sufficed, we may presume, to complete the course of training which Baba had to undergo for reaching perfection of sainthood or Godhead, to fit him for his life's work of transforming all that came into contact with him, or that would come into contact with him decade after decade, and it may even be century after century, into the model of his soul or his own likeness. Love is the one force which upholds the universe, and love is that force which can overcome the innumerable obstructions to the manifestation of love which arise in our imperfect civilization between individual and individual, group and group, and nation and nation. All bitterness, hatred, and rivalry, as well as antagonism, will melt into thin air at the contact of powerful love. And such love has to be directed to the world and existing conditions in increasing measure to enable it to cast aside the darkening clouds that cover it and restore to it the blissful light of love. The ultimate future of humanity cannot be and should not be mere ruin and wreck. It must be an integrated whole, integrated by the force of love. For that, the proper dynamo that can work upon the world is the dynamo that we call Sai Baba. In the above three stages, we noticed how the dynamo was prepared and fully charged and came ready for this work. It is after leaving his master that the seeds so well sown in these periods came to bear full fruition. Dispassion means detachment from the world. After leaving, Sai had no one to contact himself with. The world was all before him, where to choose. He went on going through jungle and village hills and deserts, and after some time he came to Shirdi in obedience to the command of his master that he was to go due west. Shirdi being due west on the banks of the river Godavari. Sai Baba came to this place. His first appearance at Shirdi was noticed by Nana Chopdar's aged mother. She, in 1900, declared that Baba came there when she was young. Baba came to Shirdi as a young, fearless lad, full of dispassion, with a bright, beaming face when she was there. After that first visit, Baba was frequently moving from one place to place, and this nomadic stage of Baba may be taken to have ended shortly after he returned to Shirdi with Bhai Patel of Dupkeda, who was his host for a time. Even after arriving with Patel's marriage party, Baba was rambling into the jungles, a homeless man, a homeless fakur. Saints resort to solitude, sunder worldly ties, have no sense of possession and want no reward. They surrender all action to God. They have no homes, as it states in the scripture. Finally, Baba took up his residence at the masjid, later on known as the Dwarakamayi. Even then, if sleeping is the best mark of residence, Baba had no single residence. Baba slept alternate nights at the Chavadi. A mosque is identified with Muslim faith. The Chavadi is open to all. So Baba, even as denoted by his sleeping places, was not a Muslim alone, but was a Muslim and a cosmopolitan. That is, he could not be confined within the four corners of the Muslim faith. He had to take up his residence at the mosque for the very excellent reason that the only other temple that he could occupy, namely the Hindu Khandoba temple, was barred and banned to him by Malspati, the man in charge of it. Baba's first idea was to stay at least for a time at the Khandoba temple outside the village, but when he remarked that it was an excellent place for a hermit like him to reside, Malspati objected and said that a Muslim, as Baba seemed to be, would not be allowed to put his foot into that Hindu temple, and hence he was driven to choose the mosque. It was Hobson's choice. Here, at the outset, we find him faced with Hindu-Muslim antagonism. Baba's whole life was the conquest of this antagonism, which is best typified by what happened to Malspati himself. The very man who objected to Baba's putting his foot into Khandoba's temple was the first to worship Baba and make him his guru, so that Baba's feet, far from soiling or tainting Khandoba's temple, would be sanctifying it. And Baba did visit Khandoba temple many a time thereafter. For example, when Upasani Maharaj was doing his japa or meditation there. Baba had to stay in the mosque, as stated already, as temples are said to be the best place for hermits, and no other temple would accommodate Baba but the mosque. Allah is the same as Khandoba in Baba's view. It was thus that the dilapidated mosque became his residence, and thus he perfected his aloofness from the world. The extent to which the nomadic habits of Baba helped his development has only to be guessed. Such habits have the great advantage of preventing attachment and promoting independence and courage and self-possession, which are very essential for a great soul force like Sai Baba. As it states in the Bhakti Sutra, he who resorts to lonely places, sunders all ties of the world, rises above the three gunas, and gives up all sense of possession. And thus, bhakti is gained by surrendering all sense pleasure and contact with the world. But nature, after all, puts a limit to the youth and versatility of the human body. In Baba's case, the nomadic habits must naturally have ceased with his increasing contact with the villagers of Shirdi and with the development of his service to people and their bhakti to him. Bhakti has different manifestations in youth and old age, as is seen in the lives of many saints. Even in a great saint like Sai Baba, there is a marked difference between the thoughts and activities of youth and those of his advanced age. The exuberance of the emotional side in youth comes out in saints in a slightly different way from that in which it emerges from worldly people. Baba's pure heart, quite as much as the young lover's heart, required some scope for its manifestation and exercise. Students of the Chaitanya Marga would note how in the earliest portion of Bhakti's life, the soul comes out in a highly emotional manner. Sobs and tears, raving and dancing, and knocking about in apparently lunatic fashion are the characteristics of a budding bhakti, expressed as a kind of very deep mahabhav. These manifest exuberant flow of love towards God, and how can the heart get pure? That is, the full force of youth will make the young bhakta dance about and give full scope for the inner bhakti to work itself through nerves and blood vessels, the muscles and throat, and the whole frame. The Bhagavata verse means that it is only by yielding to such a complete manifestation of love the heart can forget the lures of the world. Baba in the earlier years used to visit the Takiya, which was a place for traveling Muslims arriving at Shirdi to rest. At nights he would tie salangai, or tinklets, to his feet and sing rapturous songs with a kanjura in hand. He would sing songs of Kabir, Arabic and other songs, giving him full scope for expressing his overflow of love. This trait was in him many decades after he had stopped his nightly dance. For in 1910, when Rangari of Thana visited him, he mentioned that the singing by the devotees the previous night of holy songs drowned him. He expressed that with the words, "They abuse me." Rangari said, "As music goes, the bhakta will be lost in joy and tears and in various other ways," which Baba entirely endorsed as what he meant by the words, "They abuse me." Therefore, in the earliest preparation or development of Baba, music played the necessary part, and the many-sided perfection of his soul, we may presume, was the one which great mystics have reached through music. The aim of the Bhagavad Gita, or songs and the bliss of music, are within yourself. Baba was obviously completely absorbed in the God idea, and as that idea takes at one time the form of the dancing and the flute playing God Krishna, and at another the form of the fighting Rama, Baba had many of those aspects of God and developed every power necessary for his life work. As for the subsequent development, it is enough to mention that some milestones appear to be indicated by Baba, as he refers to his obtaining of Hari and the consequent giving up of his practice of administering herbs for the cure of disease, and beginning the administration of only sacred ashes and blessing. We may take it that the perfect trance or concentration that he enjoyed resulted in divine vision. But that cannot be the only flower or fruit that the trance yields. In the Bhagavata, in the Skanda, after describing how perfect the stateless state is obtained by concentrating on God, Sri Krishna adds that as part of the results of this deep trance, various siddhis accrue to the person enjoying that trance concentration. And this makes the human divine, at least for the moment. And then the human, having become divine, the divine powers and capacities and nature naturally stick onto him. Thus, Sri Krishna explains how the various siddhis, as part of the divine nature, pass on to the person who is enjoying the divine nature by the stateless state. The other siddhis are said to be the offspring of gunas, various qualities of the jiva, and therefore their manifestation in the body of the devotee who is having perfect trance naturally follows. Baba, therefore, having had one fruit, also had other fruits. He had all the various powers of turning water into oil, achieving all desires, and the power to give up life at will. This power was exhibited by Baba in 1886 when he told Maspati that he would leave the body to go and see Allah, but that he might return 3 days later, or might not. The power to return to the body, or resurrection, is another spiritual power. The power to be anywhere and to do whatever one wants are other powers mentioned. And Baba exhibited several of these in his dealings with the devotees prior to 1886. Therefore, we may take it that the siddhis, or the extent of the cities alone would not furnish a proper criterion for dividing Baba's life into different periods. It is rather the work which he sought to accomplish with the aid of those powers that ought to be the criterion. For Baba, up until 1886, was not apparently working for the grand aim of infusing love into all and turning on a large national scale the rapprochement of all persons, so as to promote Hindu-Muslim unity and other unities. So 1886 marks an epoch, an epoch, an age, a new turn. We may call it the noticeable starting of Sai Baba's mission.